Public Affairs Forum of WZTV Fox 17. And now your host, Dr. James Haney.
Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the Tennessee Democratic Party. And we're fortunate to have with us the chairperson of the Tennessee Democratic Party, Ms. JEskind1, to talk about some of the things that have happened in the party and to talk about the National Democratic Party, the Tennessee Democratic Party, and to say something about candidates and campaigns. Ms. JEskind1, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Thank you so much for inviting me. You're very kind.
Ms. JEskind1, we had last week Mr. Randall Richardson, who is the chairman of the Tennessee Republican Party, and our instructions to him was to be as partisan as possible because we wanted our audience to hear from the Republicans and the Democrats during these last 2 weeks of the campaign. And of course, a couple of days from now, we will go to the polls to elect the governor and other officers in the state of Tennessee. And we'd like for you to talk about that. But before we get into that, let's have you to give us some information about your background and some of the things that were important in terms of politics that eventually led you to the head of the Tennessee Republican Party.
And I'm the head
of the Tennessee Democratic Party. I'm sorry, again, partisan politics, again, I'm sorry. The head
well, it's interesting
okay.
because given my background, my family were very involved Republicans in Kentucky, and when I moved to Tennessee and got married lots of years ago, I decided to learn about my community, and I joined the League of Women Voters, and that led me to be a lobbyist for the League of Women Voters at the state legislature. And from there, I decided that I could accomplish more of the things that were important to me and I thought were important to my family and my community by getting actively involved in the political process as well as in the governmental and lobbying process. So I looked at the political parties and decided that the Democratic Party spoke more nearly to the issues that were of concern to me. And so I got involved in politics and in campaigns and began working for candidates, and to my surprise ended up as a candidate myself. And ran and kept doing better than the conventional wisdom thought I was going to. And so I was, as you know, elected the first woman to win a statewide office in 1980. I was elected chairman of the Public Service Commission.
Very good.
And instead of seeking re-election, I decided to run for governor in 1986 and did again better than I was expected to do, but didn't get enough votes to be elected governor. And stayed involved and stayed active and worked for Al Gore Jr.'s presidential campaign and the Clinton-Gore campaign in 1992, and really had really decided not to be a candidate, not to be involved this year in a very intensive way when I got a phone call asking me to chair the Democratic Party. And they said, "Do you want to?" And I said, "No." And they said, "But will you?" And I said, "Yes."
Yes, good.
And so that is how I got to this point. I have at least a 20-year history of making friends across the state, and I had a lot of experience in statewide campaigns, and so I can understand why they ask, and because I love the Democratic Party, and because I think public service is something noble, and because I think everyone, Oliver Wendell Holmes said, you must share in the action and passion of your time at peril of being judged not to have lived. And I was brought up on that kind of attitude, that you do participate in your community and you do get involved and you do care and you do try to make a difference for the better. And so I just didn't know how to say no.
Yeah, very good. You know, let's talk about the National Democratic Party, because we gave Mr. Richardson last week an opportunity to talk about the Republican Party, and so we want you to do the same thing in terms of the National Democratic Party. And let me simply say that he believed that in terms of the National Democratic Party, that Mr. Clinton was the major issue in reference to the campaigning, et cetera. So from that perspective, let's talk about the National Democratic Party and what's going on that level.
Well, I think that the Republicans have been fairly successful, if not totally successful, at discrediting Mr. Clinton when they could not discredit his programs, his policies, and his agenda. They went about trying to discredit the man, and they raised enough questions, never answered them, but just, you know, I can remember Senator D'Amato from New York saying, you know, I'm not accusing the president of anything, but I just think we ought to have an answer to this question. And, you know, so he raised the question and put a cloud of doubt, another layer of doubt about the president, and but never accused him of anything, because there wasn't anything to accuse him of, but just added to the layer of doubt. And you know, personally, I think that is tragic, because I think what it does, you know, we are so hard on people who want to offer themselves for public service. We are so difficult for people who think they could make a contribution, and we make it such a contact sport, so abusive, that people who want to make a contribution don't want to go through the process, and I can't much blame them. But anyway, you wanted to ask me about National Democrats, and I think that we have to look at Mr. Clinton's successes in deficit reduction, in family and medical leave bills, in reducing